Hello everybody, my name is Senkara and today I am here to show off to you the anime Lineage / Odion deck that I showcase in the video. So the first thing to notice in this deck is that there are a lot of custom cards, as you can see here. This is because the deck is using anime cards. You can substitute all of those anime cards for the real versions of the cards, for the most part anyway, with some minor adjustments here and there. But the deck will not run as well at all. I mean, the whole strategy kind of changes as you don't have the field spell Temple of the Kings. It's all a bit different and doesn't really function quite as well as the anime version, but it is an option if you're wanting to build a real working Odion deck that uses the real cards rather than the anime cards. So just thought I'd throw that out there. You can substitute them, but this is an anime-based deck. It's just for fun. It's good fun. It's really good fun and it works well. As for the ban cards in the deck, I do have substitutes that I will talk about later on in the video. So if you don't want ban cards, don't worry, we've got substitutes for that. Okay, so first things first, this deck is a trap-based deck. Ugh. It is fully based on Rashid's deck from the Yu-Gi-Oh anime. It uses pretty much all of the cards that he uses. I think it uses all the cards he uses, plus a little bit extra to get the deck running more smoothly, get it a bit more powerful. So the first extra that you'll see is, of course, 2 copies of Eldritch the Golden Lord. Now, I know that Eldritch is, you know, a Spanish card based on El Dorado, not Egyptian, but I mean, look at these guys. They're close enough, right? He looks kind of like an Egyptian pharaoh, right? I think a little bit, so I say it counts to the Egyptian theme. If Rashid built a deck these days, he probably would use Eldritch because it is trap-based deck. It's not really that Egyptian theme, but I think it looks close enough, and it fits well with the deck, in my opinion. So, 2 Eldritch the Golden Lord, I shouldn't have to explain that. Next is 1 copy of the Winged Dragon of Ra. Now this is the anime version of the Winged Dragon of Ra, which is much more betterer than the real life version. The first difference is that he gains the attack points of the tribute used to summon him, which will mostly be the Mystical Beast Circuit. But he has other effects as well, such as giving up your life points to give him more attack, paying 1,000 to destroy a monster your opponent controls. That's about the basics of it, as well as not being able to be targeted or destroyed by card effects, which is absolutely amazing. So the Winged Dragon of Ra is obviously a very powerful boss monster. If you watch the anime, you'll know where he's going as well, but he is he's pretty important to this deck, and he does make it a lot more fun than having it without him. So 1 copy of the Winged Dragon of Ra anime version. Next, Mystical Beast Circuit anime version. This runs very similarly to the real life version, except much more better. First of all, he's a ritual monster summoned with 2 spell cards, and he gains the attack equal to half the attack of a monster that it destroys by battle. The other thing is he counts as tributes equal to the number of monsters he has destroyed by battle, so he can count as 3 tributes on his own, and his power just increases dramatically. The difference between this and the real version is that the real life version only gains 500 attack when it destroys a monster. So that is it for the monsters. You only have 4 monsters in this deck, and that is all you need because Rashid's deck runs mainly on trap monsters and other traps as well. Next for the spell cards, we do actually have a few spell cards, 15 spells. We start off with 1 Ancient Chant. This is just, of course, to add the Winged Dragon of Ra to our hand. Its other effect of banishing doesn't matter because we're using the anime effect of Ra anyway, but if you switch these out for the real cards, then you'd want to use that too. So Ancient Chant, 1 of them to add Ra to your hand, which is important to the strategy. Next we have a Card of Sanctity. This is the anime version of Card of Sanctity, which allows both players to draw until they have 6 cards in their hand. If you swap out the custom cards for real cards, do not, under any circumstances, use the real version of Card of Sanctity because it is terrible. It's absolutely awful. How could they ruin Card of Sanctity like that? Just swap it out for a Pot of Extravagance or something else to that effect to get the more draw power in. Next we have a Cup of Sealed Soul. This is one of the cards needed to summon Mystical Beast Circuit. We have 2 Cursed Element, obviously to get your Golden Land traps as well as your Golden Lord. That's the main purpose of, Cursed Eldland. I mean, I don't have to explain Cursed Eldland, do I? It's a very powerful card and a very good searcher for the deck. Next we have a Graceful Charity. 3 copies of Magician's Archive. I will also explain, I'll also give things to swap out for ban cards and Magician's Archive, because this is literally the most broken spell card in the game. Magician's Archive allows you to add 1 spell from your deck to your hand. The only reason I'm using 3 of them, because I don't like to use, super powerful cards, like multiple copies of them, because, that's kind of BS. It's a little broken, but this deck does benefit from it a lot. I pretty much only use them to add any of the components of Mystical Beast Circuit. That is why I put it in here. It's because anime decks can run quite slowly, so you use this to add your Cup of Sealed Soul, your Seal of Circuit, or your Temple of the Kings. Of course, you can use it to get Pot of Greed, Card of Sanctity, whatever you need, but those are the main cards. That's the reason that it's in here. Next we have a 1 Pot of Greed, then 1 Seal of Circuit. This is the other card needed to summon Mystical Beast Circuit. We have Swords of Revealing Light. This is just because Rashid used Swords of Revealing Light, and it's not an awful card. This day and age, it's not the best card, but hey, it gets the job done, right? And Rashid does use it in the anime. Next, to finish off with the spells, we have 3 copies of Temple of the Kings. Now, this is the anime Temple of the Kings, so there's a lot of differences in that. So this is very different to the real-life version. I'm going to explain how I worded it based on what the anime effect is, because it was a little bit unclear in the anime as to what it does. So first of all, it's a field spell. That's the first difference. Next, I decided to put in the once per turn you can activate 1 trap the turn it was set. This is the same as the current version of the real Temple of the Kings, the new errata. The reason I put this in was just to give it a bit more synergy with the deck to help it work a lot better. This goes fantastically with the Golden Land traps as well. It doesn't actually do this in the anime, so you can omit that effect if you want, but I think it just helps the deck run a little bit better. It doesn't make anything too OP or anything, so it's not that bad. But yeah, I think it was just necessary to really make it fit in the deck, So the next effect is much more important. Your opponent cannot set more than 1 spell or trap at a time. So your opponent can only set 1 spell or trap at a time. That should be per turn, sorry, not at a time, but it's because of how it was worded on the wiki. It's a bit weird in the anime, but what it means is that your opponent can only set 1 spell or trap per turn. I'll have to change that in the wording there, whoops. The next effect is probably the most important as well. This is why the Winged Dragon of Ra is necessary in the deck. You can banish 1 divine monster from your hand face down. While that card is banished, your opponent can't activate spells or declare an attack, but if this card leaves the field while that card is banished, then you lose the duel. This was the big thing in the anime. Its effect wasn't shown off that much. It was mainly just to be like, haha, I'm Marek, I have the Winged Dragon of Ra. But it is actually very powerful, and that is how Rashid explains it in the anime. I don't think it really worked like that, but again, it's unclear what it actually did. We're not really shown properly, but we do know that your opponent couldn't attack, and he said that spells don't work on him, whatever that means, so I just chose to take that as your opponent can't activate spells, which is pretty fair. You're trading a divine monster and you risk losing the duel. So I think that's pretty fair effect, especially, for an anime card in a not-so-meta anime deck. I think it's okay to run that like that. The final effect is that you can pay half your life points, tribute a Mystical Beast Circuit you control to special summon the monster that was banished by this effect, and the special summon is treated as a tribute summon using the attributed monster. So this busts out your Winged Dragon of Ra just like that, very easy. In the anime, it is implied that Circuit needs to have killed 3 monsters already. I ran with that during the duels, but it's a bit of a toss-up. I don't know if that would be how it worked in real life or not, but that is what is implied in the anime, so just keep that in mind if you prefer to do that. Okay, so that's all for these spells. Nice and simple. I think most of them are pretty self-explanatory. Most of the spells are in here just to help thin out your deck a bit more, search for other cards, draw more cards. That really is the only reason that they're in here, except, of course, for the Cup, Seal, and Temple of the Kings. Okay, next, moving on to the traps. First one we have is Anti-Spell Fragrance. I run one of these because it works fantastically with Temple of the Kings. So if you were paying attention, your opponent can only set 1 spell or trap per turn while Temple of the Kings is out. And with Anti-Spell Fragrance, your opponent has to, well, both players have to set spells before activating them. So this means that your opponent can't just activate their spells and then set one trap. They have to set one spell first, and then use it next turn, and they can't set a bunch of spells at the same time, which really limits the things that your opponent can do against you, and makes it very hard for them to play, because they can't like get rid of any of your things. They have to set one at a time. It really it causes a real struggle if your opponent runs spells and traps, so that limits down the deck. It helps control what they're doing. Anti-Spell Fragrance is a pretty amazing card to go with Temple of the Kings. Next up we have 2 Conquistador of the Golden Land. I only run 2 of him because he doesn't have that much attack, but his effect is fantastic, of course, destroying one face-up card on the field. Next we have the Curse of Anubis. This is a very Rashid card. It's not the best card, but it is a very Rashid card to use. Changes all effect monsters on the field to defense position until the end of the turn. The original defense of those monsters becomes 0, and their battle positions cannot be changed. Next we have 2 Divine Wrath. This seems like a very Rashid card to use. I don't know why. I think the reason is because he always used it in those old Nintendo games, back when Divine Wrath was a pretty good card. But it is still a decent card to run in a trap deck. Discard 1 card, negate the activation of a monster effect, and destroy it. You could, of course, swap it out for a Solemn Judgment or anything would work as well. I just think that Divine Wrath fits Rashid's deck a bit more. I don't know why, because Divine Wrath kind of looks like an Egyptian god. Probably not. Maybe it's just because he kept using it in all those old games. I don't know, but of course you can swap it out for any of the Solemn cards if you so choose to. Yeah, I just think Divine Wrath fits better. I don't know. I like it. Next we have 1 Elixir of Scarlet Sanguine, just to get your Eldritch out or another copy of it out. This is just a great trap to run. Next we have 3 copies of Embodiment of Apophis. And this card is, I'm using the anime version, which is actually worse than the real life version, but I still wanted to keep faithful to the anime deck. So if we have a look at, that's not how you spell embodiment, embodiment, here we go. So yeah, so in the real life version, you activate his effect during the main phase and special summon this as a trap monster. In the anime version, you can only activate it when your opponent declares an attack. So actually, I don't know which is better. I forgot that this had to be in the main phase, so maybe this one is better. It can save you from an attack, however you can't activate it the turn you set it. If you've got Temple of the Kings on the field, yeah, you do have to wait for your opponent to declare an attack, so it's a bit of a toss-up which one is better, but I chose to go for the anime version just because, you know, I wanted to keep faithful to the deck. If I'm using all these powerful anime cards, I should be limited by the anime cards as well. Next we have 1 Eye of Ujat. I never actually got the chance to use this in any of the Duels and Tuesdays video, unfortunately, but when this card you can activate when your opponent declares an attack, and you change the attack target to a monster that your opponent controls to another monster they control. So this is a pretty cool card for control and just for, you know, saving your butt, dealing a little bit of damage to your opponent. It's not that bad, it's not great either. If you wanted to swap it out for something, you could go for a Magic Cylinder, or better yet a Mirror Force would actually probably be better. Next we have 3 Haquero of the Golden Land. This card's pretty good, banishes cards from the either graveyard and can be summoned as a level 5 with 1800 attack, so not that bad, has good attack points, and it looks kind of Egyptian-y if we stretch our mind and just ignore all of the details in it, just glance at it. That's an Egyptian zombie, 100%, don't worry about it. Next up we have Imperial Custom. This card seems pretty good for a Rashid deck. Since all of your monsters are trap monsters, this card prevents continuous traps from being destroyed by battle or card effect. So, not a bad card at all. I think it's pretty cool. You can only have 1 on the field at a time, and it's only worth having 1 anyway. I just thought it was a cool card to add. It's not the best, but it does work very well in Rashid's deck. Next we have one of his most powerful traps. No, we do have his most powerful trap. 3 copies of Judgment of Anubis. This is much better than the real life version. This card is completely ridiculous. So with this card, activate when your opponent uses a spell card, the effect is negated and all monsters on the field are destroyed, then half of all that attack becomes damage to your opponent. So you deal an incredible amount of damage to your opponent, destroy all of their monsters and negate their spell. Judgment of Anubis is pretty ridiculous, especially if you've lined up 3 copies and you got the Spell Fragrance combo going on. Your opponent basically can't do anything except activate maybe a trap or a monster effect. You screw them over. It's fantastic. Judgment of Anubis, 10 out of 10 counter trap. Best trap in the game. We love that. We love it. It's not that fantastic, but it is very powerful. Much better than the real life version, though the real life version isn't that bad either. Next we have a Magic Jammer. This card, you discard a card to negate a spell. This card's not fantastic. It is by no means that good of a card. A Dark Bribe is probably better maybe, but this is a card that Rashid specifically uses, so I threw it in just to add it, and because we did need some, I guess, spell... No, we don't really need spell negation, we have Judgment of Anubis, but still, Rashid does use this card. It's not a terrible card, it's just not a great card either, but he uses it, so we use it. Next, of course, you have to have Skill Drain. Like, Rashid didn't use this in the anime, but Skill Drain is powerful, and... yeah, that's a reminder to us all that Skill Drain is now at 3. Let me just update this deck real quick. Ooh, boy, we can just yeet these bad boys out now. Isn't that just delicious? Oh, boy. 3 Skill Drains! What the hell is happening to Yu-Gi-Oh? So now we run 3 Skill Drains. I made this deck when Skill Drain was still limited, but yeah. That's a disaster. There we go. Finally, to wrap things off, we have 1 Trap Dust Shoot. This card is just a pretty good, it's just a good trap. It fits the theme well, you know, it is like a tomb trap is basic. That's the idea of, you know, the Dark Scorpion guys are tomb robbers, there's a tomb trap. It fits the theme very well, like Odion, his whole thing was tomb traps, right? That's why he ran traps, because to protect the tomb, to protect the temple. So Trap Dust Shoot is just fantastic. It's a good card, it's banned for a reason, and it fits in Rashid's deck like perfectly, you know, it fits the theme perfectly. So that's the main deck, that's the basics. If you want to see how it runs, be sure to check out Tuesday's video again. I'll quickly go over the extra deck as well as cards to swap out for the ban cards. But yeah, this runs basically as you would expect it to. Bust out your traps, set, prepare for everything, you know, have your Temple of the Kings. It really is much of a control deck as expected from a trap deck, so yeah, just run it as a control deck, you know, limit what your opponent can do, and then bust out your powerful monsters. You only have 4, so not much of an option there, so bust out those guys and really just deal some damage. Now, of course, you can as well use your Conquistador and Haquero to go into some nice Xyz summons. So before we get into the extra deck, let me just go over quickly. There are ban cards, there are 3 ban cards. If you don't want to use ban cards, swap them all out for a Pot of Extravagance. It's good enough, or a pot of the other one that I forgot the name of because I don't like it as much. I'd rather draw 2. So Pot of Extravagance can be replaced for those. And if you feel a bit dirty about running 3 copies of Magician's Archive, you can swap them out for a Terraforming and a Metaverse as well. The point of them is to get those main 3 spells, so that's the idea, really. Finally, for the extra deck is pretty self-explanatory. I'll just run through them. Abyss Dweller, summoned with your 2 copies of Apophis. Adreus, Keeper of Armageddon. Constella Pleiades. Divine Arsenal, Zeus Sky Thunder. Evil Swarm, Exciton Knight. Number 106, Giant Hand. Number 61, Volcasaurus. Super Dreadnought Rail Cannon Gustav Max can be summoned with 2 Eldritch or a Winged Dragon of Ra as well. And then Juggernaut Liebe can obviously be summoned with Gustav Max. We have these because we can. That is the only reason. They're actually very easy to summon in this deck because Eldritch is special summoned so easily, so why wouldn't you? You know, why wouldn't you? They're very powerful cards. Finally, for the Link monsters, we have an Access Code Talker, Avalucifer the Goddess, Lackluster Soldier, Nightmare Phoenix, Nightmare Unicorn, and a Link Spider, which is summoned again with either of your golden land traps. So this extra deck is mainly focused on controlling the opponent as well as getting rid of problematic cards. That is the purpose of it. It's not an extra deck based deck at all. I hardly ever use the extra deck since there's never really that much opportunity to do so with this deck because the deck runs well with the main deck on its own. But these are fantastic backups to get rid of problematic cards as well as just control your opponent by limiting their effects. So yeah, that is the basics of this deck. I hope you enjoyed. If you try this deck out for yourself, then be sure to let me know down in the comments. Let me know how it goes. It is a lot of fun to use. I had a great time playing with this deck. Be sure to check out that video on Tuesday. It's great. It's fantastic. I don't want to, hate to say it myself, but it is. It's fantastic. It is a lot of fun. It was very cool, and this deck runs so well. So if you want to see the deck in action, do be sure to check that video out. Leave a like and subscribe. Comment down below. In this series, we're going to be looking through all of the Ishtar decks. We're going to be doing Ishizu's next week, and then Marek's deck after that. So it's going to be a lot of fun making all these new updated versions of their deck while still sticking to the core theme. That's my goal for this, is to make it look like it is their deck, stick to the same theme, but make it a bit more upgraded and more, fun and works better and is actually a decent deck. So thank you all so very much for watching. I hope you enjoyed. My name has been Senkara, and until next time, see ya.